50 bone-chilling horror stories that haunt you at midnight while the rain falls down. The clock struck midnight, its chime reverberating like a menacing warning. Rain hammered against the windows, each drop a steady heartbeat in the oppressive silence. Shadows danced in the corners of the dimly lit room, whispering secrets too sinister to understand. This was no ordinary night, it was a night where the veil between this world and the next felt alarmingly thin. Each gust of wind seemed to carry a voice, soft yet insistent, urging anyone within earshot to pay attention, to listen closely. Right above the rumble of thunder, a faint scratching echoed, possibly a branch against the window, or was it something worse? Out there, in the darkness, something cold and unnatural lurked. It watched, waited, and, worst of all, it knew your name. A neighbor's cat had gone missing last week, and even the bravest souls in the neighborhood spoke in hushed tones about the old witch who lived at the end of the street. They said she danced with shadows, collecting secrets as if they were shiny trinkets, and she had a way of making the unseen understood. As the rain continued to fall, a gnawing sense of dread wrapped around Jess's heart. She recalled the story from last year, the one where a young girl, just her age, had stumbled into the hands of that very witch. It was said that the girl could still be heard at night, her voice an eerie echo through the downpour, calling for help that would never come. It made her blood run cold. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With her heart racing, Jess stood. The room felt like it was closing in. Outside, shadows shifted amid the dripping branches. A low moan echoed from the backyard, chilling her spine. What if it was the girl, returning to warn her? Or what if it was something much darker, something that meant her harm? Jess hesitated, caught between her fear and an urge to know. She took a step toward the window, her breath hitching as the scratching grew louder. Just as her fingertips brushed against the cold glass, a flash of lightning illuminated the yard. For a split second, she saw it, a figure cloaked in black, standing still, waiting beneath the ancient oak tree. And then, all at once, darkness returned, swallowing the image and her courage whole. Her heart thudded. She had to know what it wanted, but was she ready for what lay beyond the shadows? The air thickened with tension as Jess's breath quickened. Goosebumps surged across her arms. She felt caught in a grip of terror, yet the flame of curiosity flickered within her, an irresistible call that twisted her stomach into knots. What if it was the girl crying out for help? Or maybe it was the witch, casting a spell with an unbreakable gaze. Pulse racing, she yanked the curtains back. The lightning's flash had been a mere trick of her imagination. The yard lay empty, drenched in shadows and rain. But the air felt charged. Jess heard a whisper, barely audible above the thunder. "Help me." The voice sent shivers down her spine. It was soft, familiar, and haunting. She had to check. She stepped back from the window, heart pounding, and slipped on her raincoat. Its fabric felt heavy against her skin, as if it sensed the weight of her decision. With her hand trembling, she turned the doorknob and stepped outside. The storm felt more alive now, like the earth was breathing with each clap of thunder. Rain poured down, cascading around her in sheets. Jess squinted into the inky darkness, straining to see beyond the flicker of her porch light. "Jess!" The pitiful cry rang out clearer now, a ghostly echo pulling her toward the backyard. It was not the girl, but something much worse, a gathering presence that loomed everywhere and nowhere all at once. She pressed forward, fighting against her instincts to pull back and run. As she neared the fence, a flash of lightning illuminated the ancient oak. There it was again, the figure, seemingly watching her from the tree. It looked like a woman, or maybe a shadow of one, her face masked by the storm. "Who are you?" Jess shouted, her voice wavering. The figure didn't reply. Instead, slowly and deliberately, it raised an arm, pointing directly at her. The rain intensified, drenching her hair, yet all she felt was a cold chill that spiraled down her spine. The tug of fear almost made her turn back, but curiosity held her fast. "What do you want?" she whispered, stepping closer. The figure remained silent, but a vibration thrummed in the air. The sound of glass breaking echoed nearby, startling her. She whirled around, the night closing in tight around her. Panic flared. "Is someone there?" she called out, trying to sound braver than she felt. No response came, just the relentless patter of rain. It pulsated, the sound growing louder as if each raindrop screamed a warning. "Help me." The voice was stronger this time, more desperate, wrapping around her heart like a vice. Jess's knees threatened to buckle as the words sliced through her. She turned back to the oak, but the figure was gone. The air felt heavier, as if something monumental had shifted. "Hello?" she cried again, her voice breaking with the weight of dread. No answer awaited her but the grumbling storm. A twinge of regret blossomed in her chest. Had she ventured into something she could never escape? Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Heart racing, she fished it out, only to find a message from a number she didn't recognize. "Don't go near the witch." A chill gripped her heart, and before she could process it, shadows whispered around her, growing ever closer. The sound of steps behind her made her blood turn to ice. She spun around to face whatever was lurking just out of her view, but nothing was there. Or maybe something was, hiding in the shadows, and it was just waiting for her to turn her back once more. What's hiding in the dark? She thought, eyes wide and searching, and then the ground beneath her rumbled, and with it came a voice, a deep, raspy laugh that echoed through the stillness of the storm-laden night. Jess realized she was not alone. And as shadows danced, an unearthly power pulled her, an awakening that would unleash horrors she could scarcely comprehend. What had she awakened? A thunderclap erupted so close that Jess felt the vibration coursing through her bones. She stumbled back, instinctively shielding herself from the storm, but it was the voice that paralyzed her, taunting and chilling, like cascading ice. "Curiosity led you here, little girl." Each word dripped with malice, enveloping her in an eerie fog of dread. She scanned her surroundings but saw nothing, only shadows shifting among the trees, twirling like in a strange dance. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice shaky but defiant. Silence, then a low chuckle that resonated through the rain. The air felt alive, wrapping around her like dense fog. She felt the unrelenting urge to flee, but some cruel fascination held her in place. Suddenly, the darkness before her shifted. Painfully slow, a figure emerged. Its form was obscured by the rain and the shadows, but Jess could see it wore a flowing, tattered dress that flickered in and out of existence. "Are you the witch?" she gasped, feeling a surge of adrenaline. The figure laughed, a sound that sent sharp pangs of terror racing down her spine. "Witch? To some, yes. But I am more than just that." With each word, the atmosphere thickened, pressing against her like a weight. Jess could hardly breathe, each gasp mingling with the rhythm of the storm. "What do you want from me?" she cried, but deep down, she feared the answer. "I want what was taken from me, Jess," the figure said, and a flicker of recognition lit up within the shadows. The voice carried echoes of sad memories, crying children, lost laughter. Cries that felt all too familiar. "The girl you seek, she is part of this. You have opened the way." Her mind raced. The girl, the spirit from her dream. A chill swept through her as a memory surfaced, the laughter of children playing before the darkness swallowed it whole. "No!" Jess shouted, shaking her head fiercely. "I'm not part of this. I didn't mean to come here." "Meanings change, my dear." The figure took a slow step forward, and Jess could see a shimmering face, eyes dark and infinite. "You are already entangled in the web of fate. You cannot leave." With horror dawning in her heart, Jess turned and bolted for the house, her feet slipping in the mud as she ran, heart pounding in sync with the thunder. She could feel the presence behind her, almost tangible, an exhilarating terror driving her forward, yet the whispers of the witch taunted her, weaving around her thoughts. Where will you go? The storm is awakening. Her pace quickened despite the weight of fear inching closer at her heels. She reached the porch and fumbled with the door, her hands clumsy, trembling as if paralyzed with dread. Just as she slammed the door shut behind her, the laughter erupted again, echoing through the walls like the dark remnants of a nightmare that wouldn't let her wake. Jess, the voice rang out, soft, mesmerizing, but laced with a thread of malice. You've merely sealed it. Now the witch sees you, she will come for you. Jess's heart raced as she pressed her back against the door, but waves of panic washed over her. Had she really escaped? The air felt heavy, intoxicating with danger, electricity crackling like a flash of reality crumbling around her. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and Jess's breath caught in her throat. Shadows danced across the walls, and the air shifted again, this time, colder. What was it that awaited her within the storm? And then she felt that the ground trembled beneath her feet, a deep unearthly growl reverberating through the very bones of her home. What had she truly awakened, and could she survive its wrath? The tremor pulsed through every inch of Jess's body. It felt as if the earth itself had been disturbed, shattering some ancient peace long forgotten. She forced herself to breathe, the air thick as if pulled from the depths of a grave. Jess, the voice whispered again, swirling around her like smoke. It wasn't just outside anymore, it trickled into her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like a serpent tightening its grip. Each recitation of her name was a cold touch, sending shivers crawling across her skin. Fighting the instinct to run again, Jess turned her focus to the dimly lit room. Shadows swayed in the corners, waiting, lurking, their menace palpable. The old wooden floor creaked under her weight, echoing her heartbeat, a frantic tattoo seeking an escape. Why can't I leave? She muttered to herself, struggling to tame the rising tide of panic. The answers she already knew churned within her. She had awakened something vast and ancient, and it wasn't going to let her go that easily. The wind battered against the windows, sending waves of rain lashing against the glass. Each drop felt like 1,000 tiny hands trying to claw at her, pulling her deeper into terror. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the hallway, followed by a groan low and mournful. Jess. It was closer now. She could feel the weight of its presence pressing against her shoulders, damp and oppressive. A flicker of moonlight broke through the storm clouds, illuminating an outline. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, draped in a long, tattered veil, ethereal tendrils snaking around it like fog. Her stomach lurched. This wasn't just the witch, it was something else, a sinister echo of the witch's cruelty wrapped in physical form. Jess could sense its hunger, it yearned for the connection that had been forged. Stay away! She screamed, her voice raw and desperate. As the figure dragged itself closer, she felt the shadows dance around her, fiercely alive. Each step it took sent jolts of fear coursing through her veins. Yet, as terrified as she was, a curious anger ignited a streak of resilience in her desperation. Why are you doing this? She challenged, forcing her voice to steady against the heavy dread suffocating her. What do you want from me? The figure paused, its body shuddering as if the air was drawn into a strange, cold wind. Its face shifted, revealing an expression of longing twisted by sorrow and rage, a mask of torment. You took my peace, it hissed. You dared to tread on my ground. Fingers trembling, Jess clutched the edge of a coffee table, grounding herself in the reality of the moment. I didn't mean to disturb you. She pleaded, a tarnished piece of courage shining through her panic. I just wanted to help. Help? The figure scoffed, stretching out a skeletal hand. You can't help the dead. You are merely bait, sweet Jess, to summon the real terror. The air shifted again, becoming electrified with tension. Jess instinctively took a step back, eyes darting to the stairs leading to safety. But the figure's laugh shattered that thought, a crackling sound that echoed through the darkness. reminding her of the twisted resonance of the witch's voice. And then it lunged, a blur of darkness, limbs reaching, anger unleashed. Jess screamed, spinning around, confusion and adrenaline sending her heart racing, demanding action. Frantically, she dashed toward the door leading to the outside world, the rain still pouring, relentless, pounding against the ground like a battle drum, but just as she reached for the handle, a loud crash sent shudders through the structure, shaking her resolve. The force of the storm bellowed behind her, its thunder roaring like a nightmarish beast. The witch, she realized, wasn't the only horror she had awakened. What would she do next? And could she face the truth lurking just outside, where the storm raged with secrets hungry to consume her? The impact rattled the windows, sending shards of panic through Jess's spine. She hesitated, caught in the grip of the storm's fury and the shadow's monstrous intent. The world outside was chaos, but the chaos inside was just as dire, dark tendrils reaching for her soul. With a primal scream, Jess yanked open the door. The cold rain lashed against her, stinging her skin like 1,000 needles. She could barely see through the sheets of rain that streamed down, distorting the night into a filthy gray. She ran, not thinking, just moving toward the trees that loomed like ghosts at the edge of the property. Behind her, the figure twisted within the doorway, its silhouette marked by the dim flickering light from inside. She heard it hiss again, the sound both alluring and horrific, drifting through the storm like a chilling whisper. It promised terror. It promised pain. Jess. It called her name, a seductive melody wreathed in malevolence. You cannot escape what has been summoned. She stumbled, her foot catching on the uneven ground, and she fell, knees grazing the earth. Pain shot through her, but she forced herself to scramble up once again, lungs burning as she pushed herself forward. There was no time to think, every instinct screamed at her to survive. The trees loomed closer, their branches clawing at the sky, swaying with the wind like skeletal hands. Desperation clawed at Jess's throat. If she could just reach the woods, maybe she could hide. Maybe there she could find a way to fight back, but in her haste, she didn't notice the roots that twisted from the soft ground. She tumbled again, this time rolling onto her back, heart racing, drenched in fear. Above her, the storm raged, lightning flashing, illuminating the trees for an instant, turning silhouettes into terrifying forms. Jess pulled herself into a crouch, bracing for impact, dread coiling in her gut. Then she heard a soft rustling behind her, growing louder. Something was coming. Something that fed off the chaos. Panic surged, and she turned, adrenaline fueling her movements. To her horror, she spotted a figure emerging through the fog, a phantom outline with eyes that flickered like dying embers. It was a small girl, no more than 10, hair matted and face smeared with dirt. Jess's breath caught in her throat as she recognized something unsettlingly familiar in the girl's gaze. "Help me," the child whispered, a plea heavy with a promise of despair. "They won't let me go." Jess squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head frantically. This wasn't happening. The risible thought shimmered in her mind, could the girl be yet another victim? Another wretched soul tied to the horrors she had awakened? Get away from her! Jess yelled, defiance bubbling amid the tides of fear. But instead of retreating, the girl took a step closer, every slow motion filled with dread and entrapment. "Help me before it's too late." The rain poured relentlessly around them, overlaid by intermittent flashes of lightning that illuminated dark corners of the forest. Jess felt the ground tremble beneath her again, a foreboding reminder of the ancient force that surged within, eager for the hunt. Then, suddenly, silence. The rain seemed to slow. The wind paused. Everything stood still as the whispers of the storm waned, anticipation hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Before Jess could catch her breath, a bone-chilling laugh erupted from the shadows, reverberating through the trees. The sinister voice wrapped around her like barbed wire. "Did you think you could escape, sweet Jess? The real terror has yet to reveal itself." And with that, Jess understood. The girl was no savior, she was a key. A key to something far worse lurking just beyond the veil of darkness, the true horror waiting to be unleashed. What was it waiting for? What did it want from her? In that moment, Jess's heart pounded with fear and dread as the air thickened with unrelenting despair. She had to decide: trust the girl or run into the depths of the storm, but beyond the trees, unseen eyes watched, hungry for her choice. Jess's heart raced, betraying her mind's desperate efforts to remain calm. The girl stood there, still and silent, mud streaked across her cheeks like war paint. For a moment, the world felt utterly paused, as though time itself was holding its breath. A chilling wind gusted through the trees, sending a shiver down her spine. "Help me!" the girl's voice sliced through the thick silence, each word laced with sorrow. "Please, I didn't want to end up like this." Swallowing hard, Jess clenched her fists. "What do you mean? What happened to you?" She dared not step closer, even as the storm resumed its raging howl, muddy water pooling around her boots. The girl's gaze bore into her, eyes wide and desperate. "I'm trapped," she whispered, "and so are you. You must listen. They won't stop until you're just like me." The echo of that last sentence sent panic racing through Jess as the fiendish laugh from the darkness echoed in her ears. She grit her teeth, her breath hitching as she turned to look back at the sinister doorway where the entity lurked, poised and waiting. With renewed urgency, she forced her attention back to the girl. "How do I escape?" "Trust me," the girl pleaded, her voice rising above the storm. "We must go deeper into the woods. It's the only way to break free." Jess hesitated, fear clawing at her throat. A sickening swirl of dread and hope battled within her chest. Would following this girl lead her closer to safety or further into darkness? Lightning struck again, blue light illuminating the forest, revealing twisted branches and shadows that danced menacingly. Every part of her screamed to run, to flee back toward the house, where she could lock the door and barricade herself inside. But the thought of that evil figure lingering just a few steps away paralyzed her. "Jess!" the girl cried, sobs mixing with the rain. "Please don't leave me. I've waited so long for someone to help. Why should I trust you?" Jess snapped, voice trembling as yet another jagged spear of fear shot through her. The girl's mouth opened, but no words came out. Instead, tears streamed down her dirt-smudged face, revealing a soul caught in an endless cycle of entrapment. In that split second, Jess felt the connection that transcended their differences. Both were victims of circumstances beyond their control. Could she really turn her back and walk away? "Okay," she muttered, the storm's ferocity amplifying the moment. "I'll help you. But you have to promise that you'll help me escape, too." A flicker of warmth ignited in the girl's gaze, light breaking through the torment. "I promise, Jess. But we have to hurry." As they turned to face the darkness ahead, a low growl echoed from the shadows, reverberating through the trees. Jess's heart plummeted as she realized they were no longer alone. The air was thick with malevolence, something far more ancient lurking just beyond their sight. Racing breathlessly into the depths of the forest, Jess clutched the girl's hand, instinctively trusting her as they plunged into the surreal darkness. Branches whipped past them, scratching her arms, but Jess pressed on, driven by the urgency to escape what was pursuing them. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted, and Jess stumbled. The world spun as she fell into a hidden hollow, dragging the girl down with her. They landed hard, breathless and disoriented, hearts pounding in sync. "What is this place?" Jess gasped, surveying the murky gloom around her. Chilly silence enveloped them, a vacuum of despair that assured her they were still not alone. Just then, the low growl morphed into a snarling roar, reverberating against the trees. A pair of glowing eyes materialized in the darkness, keen and predatory. "Run!" Jess shouted, adrenaline igniting every nerve in her body. But as they scrambled to their feet, Jess remembered the girl, her heart sinking. In this moment of utter chaos, could they both escape? The creature's growl deepened, and Jess felt its breath on her neck, sending waves of terror coursing through her veins. In the depths of the unknown, just as she thought all was lost, she felt the girl's tiny hand tighten around hers. A thin thread of hope twisted around despair. What would it take to break free? There was no way out unless she was willing to face the truth about what they were running from. But Jess's stomach knotted at the thought. What if the true horror wasn't out there but within her all along? The darkness pressed in around them, thick and suffocating, as Jess clutched the girl's hand tighter. Her heart raced, caught in a cycle of terror and adrenaline. Each shadow seemed to pulse with menace, the air charged with anticipation as the creature snarled, drawing closer. "Jess, we need to move," the girl urged, her voice barely a whisper above the mounting storm. Panic flickered in her eyes, urging Jess to trust her completely. In a split second, Jess made a decision. They had no choice but to follow her instinct, even if that meant plunging deeper into the terror of the unknown. The echo of the growl grew louder and more menacing, vibrating in her bones. Jess turned and sprinted into the darkness, the girl close behind. The brush of branches cut at them, but they pushed through, lungs burning. Each time Jess glanced back, the glowing eyes seemed to flame brighter, drawing nearer, promising dread with every moment. "Where do we go?" Jess shouted, desperation clawing at her voice. She had to know if the girl had a plan. "We need the hollow tree," the girl yelled back, pointing ahead where a massive, gnarled tree rose like a crooked finger in the storm. "It's a safe place." But as they charged towards the tree, the wind howled louder, almost mocking them. The ground beneath their feet churned, acrid roots snaked up from the mud, entangling Jess's ankles as if the forest itself was alive and eager to pull them into its depths. "Keep going," the girl cried, lunging forward, dragging Jess along. Jess could feel the creature's breath now, hot and pungent, grazing her back. A surge of fear pushed her to move faster. The tree was within reach. They reached the hollow tree, its trunk wider than any she'd ever seen. The gaping hole in its base beckoned like a dark mouth. Without hesitation, they dove inside, barely escaping the jaws of whatever hunted them. Darkness embraced them like a suffocating blanket, and for a second, a fragile quiet fell. Jess pressed her back against the damp wood, heart hammering, trying to catch her breath. But that silence shattered as the growling outside grew ever frantic, agitated, clawing at the tree like the furious wind. "Are we safe?" Jess gasped, hands trembling as she looked at the girl's wide eyes, searching for assurance. "No," the girl exclaimed, urgency creeping into her voice. "They can't follow us in here. At least not yet. But we need to understand what we're up against." With those words, a faint tremor ran through Jess. "What do you mean? What are they?" "They're the lost souls caught in the woods," the girl explained, her face serious. "Those who've given in to despair and darkness. They want to take you, Jess, just like they took me." Jess felt a jolt of realization. "So, you're trapped." "Until someone breaks the cycle," the girl interrupted, eyes pleading. "We can't wait. We have to find out why I'm here and how you can escape this fate." Fear clawed its way back into Jess's heart. This was no ordinary girl standing beside her. She was a reflection of what lay ahead if Jess couldn't find a way out. Just then, shadows crept into the edges of the trees, swirling and whispering like a silent scream. The creature's growl transformed into a cacophony of eerie voices, drowning them with the weight of despair. "Jess!" the girl shouted, and Jess could see panic in her eyes. "You must do something. Focus on what you fear the most. Only then will we find a way out." Jess's blood ran cold. What could she possibly confront that was worse than this haunting night? Her darkest fears slithered in the corners of her mind. As she inhaled sharply, preparing to face her horror, the whispers grew louder, melding into a single chilling call. Would she confront her past, or surrender to what lingered in the shadows? The monstrous eyes faded away from the entrance, but the darkness swallowed them, leaving Jess with one soul-aching question: would the truth lead her to freedom or deeper into the nightmare? The murmur of whispers twisted around them, haunting and taunting. Jess could feel them, those voices clawing at her thoughts, poking holes in her resolve like needles in soft flesh. Fear wrapped around her throat, squeezing tighter. Focus, Jess. The girl urged, her voice breaking through the din just enough to make it heard. It's all we have left. Jess's mind raced. What was her greatest fear? Her heart hammered as the shadows flickered with malevolent intent, urging her to surrender to the darkness. Memories flooded her lonely childhood, bullying at school, the crushing weight of never being enough. Each image felt like a nail being hammered into her coffin. No. She choked out, shaking her head. I can't let them in. The girl stepped closer, eyes pleading. You have to confront it, Jess. That's the only way we can escape. A surge of cold ran through Jess. The shadows didn't represent just unfounded fears, they were her past, tangible now, alive in the twisted abyss of the hollow tree. Was she really prepared to face them? Would she see the faces of her tormentors, or the heartbreak of loss? Jess, the girl whispered, a tremor betraying her own uncertainty. What is your deepest fear? Name it. Own it. It binds you, but it gives you strength, too. Jess's breath quickened. She could see a flicker of something in the gloom, a figure, shrouded in darkness, barely outlined against the chaos around them. I'm afraid of being alone, Jess admitted, the words slipping past her lips almost involuntarily. Of being forgotten. As she confessed, the figure morphed, taking on a shape all too familiar herself, but younger, small and lost in a sea of faces that passed her by as though she were invisible. Pain surged through her, a sharp sting echoing in her chest. The shadows twisted and writhed, the laughter of her childhood tormentors rippling just beyond her control. You're nothing. A voice sneered, reminiscent of those long-ago days. You'll never mean anything to anyone. No. Jess screamed, the sound ricocheting off the damp walls of the tree. I want to let you win. I want to. Suddenly, a bright light flared in the depths of her heart, cutting through the shadows like a watchful beacon. The girl next to her stepped forward, illuminated by that same light. See, Jess. You're not alone. I'm here. We face this together. The whispers lost their strength, faltering under the bright glow of Jess's resolve. The figure of her younger self trembled, an echo of pain mixing with uncertainty. Let me help you, the girl urged, reaching out. Help. The child's voice felt like glass beneath Jess's skin, sharp yet fragile. No one can help me. With determination bubbling, Jess stepped toward her past, her voice steady. I can. In that moment, Jess grasped her younger self's hand, warmth radiating through their connection. She felt a swell of understanding, powerful and sustaining. You are worthy. You are loved. Light erupted between them, chasing shadows away, but the moment was fleeting. The creature outside roared, a furious reminder that their time was limited. We must go now. The girl shouted, urgency thick in the air. As the last shreds of darkness began to shred away, Jess felt the ground beneath them tremble. The hollow tree is collapsing. Panic surged. What next? The light surged, pulling them forward, but a new sound met their ears, a low, grating hiss, echoing from somewhere deep within the howling woods. Something worse was coming. Before Jess could react, the girl yanked her arm fiercely as they prepared to run. We need to hurry, before it's too late. Trust me. But as they surged deeper into the tree's hollow, Jess knew they were not free yet. The true terror was just beginning. Would they survive the onslaught about to be unleashed? What rose against them in that maddening darkness? The walls of the hollow tree gleamed with grotesque reflections of twisted faces, their expressions cruel and mocking. The ground shook underfoot, sending shudders up Jess's spine as the whispers clawed at her resolve once more. The inky shadows rolled around them, a creeping wave of despair that threatened to pull them back into the maw of their nightmares. Run! The girl screamed, her breath hot against Jess's ear. Jess felt a surge of instinct, kicking into high gear, propelling them forward, deeper into the murky chaos. The path narrowed. Thick roots twisted like veins, threatening to trip them at every turn, but they pressed on, urgency born from the sound of snarling breath behind them. The rattling hiss rose in volume, an echoing chorus that chilled Jess to her core. Every step felt like a betrayal to her exhausted legs, begging her to slow down, but fear spurred her onward, close on the heels of the darkness. What is that thing? Jess glanced over her shoulder just in time to see a shadow flit past, its form barely distinguishable. Something with teeth, glistening like shards of broken glass, hungry and relentless. It's what we fear most. The girl exclaimed, pulling Jess through a tight turn. Remember the shadows. They're born from us. The air thickened, all around them shifting with the weight of their unspoken fears, abandonment, rejection, loss, each fear a thread in the tapestry of their desperate plight. Jess could feel the gloom constricting, tightening like a noose, as if the ghosts of her past were wrestling for dominance, trying to drag her back down, but the light pulsing in their clasped hands resonated like a heartbeat. It throbbed with hope amid the suffocating darkness, a reminder that the shadows had no claim on who she was. She stole a glance at her younger self, still visible in the dim light they created. There was a flicker of something in those big, frightened eyes, an ember of strength waiting to ignite. Keep going. We can't stop. Jess urged, channeling her fear into energy. We'll find a way out together. The girl nodded, determination etched on her youthful face. You have to believe it, Jess. Believe in yourself. The whispers swirled violently now, coiling tighter around them. Leave her. You'll be lost forever. No. Jess shouted, defiance ringing clear. I won't abandon her. With each step, the fear transformed into a heavy blanket that surrounded them, weighing them down. Jess could feel her own doubts rear their heads, ugly and vile. But she fought back, reminding herself of the strength she had found the moment she embraced her fears. Remember who you are. Her voice rang out, amplified against the cacophony of torment. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, coalescing into a monstrous form that loomed over them. Its eyes burned like stars, fierce and elemental. You can't escape. The creature boomed, its voice a rumble of thunder, cracking the air with palpable dread. Jess froze. The fear threatened to swallow her whole, but through the panic, she felt the warmth of her younger self's hand still gripping hers. She inhaled sharply, summoning every ounce of courage. We can. Jess cried, drawing on the light between them. We won't let you take us. A bright flash exploded in the darkness, momentarily blinding them. The creature howled as the light pierced through its smoky tendrils, unraveling the sinister form. Quick! There's a passage. The girl exclaimed, pointing at a narrow slice of light ahead. Jess felt a jolt of hope surge through her as they barreled toward it, hearts pounding, adrenaline pumping through their veins, but then, Jess felt the ground tremor violently beneath her feet. The tree was truly collapsing now, bricks of earth and shadow screeched remorsefully as they crumbled. Hurry! The girl rasped, urging Jess on, but doubt bubbled in her chest. Would they make it through? As they neared the opening, the shadows recoiled in fury. Jess couldn't ignore the cold chill creeping up her spine, not this time. And then, just a breath away from the light, Jess felt an icy grip pull her backward. No! She screamed, fighting against the force dragging her back into the void. In that split second, fear wrapped around her once more, a reminder of what she had just faced. But she wouldn't give in. Not again. With a primal roar, she wrenched herself free, bursting through the threshold of light. But as she stumbled into freedom, she felt something else surge behind her. Jess. The girl's voice echoed, twisting with desperation from within the shadows. Had she truly escaped? Or was something gray and twisted still lurking in the depths? What lay ahead, just beyond the horizon of dawn? Jess stumbled into the light, her heart racing like a wild drum. She turned back, the entrance of the hollow tree looming with dark menace, shadows swirling around the edges like a tempest ready to swallow. No! Come on! She screamed, desperate. You have to get out. The girl's face, filled with fear and determination, flickered in the depths. Jess! She cried, her voice caught in the suffocating dark. I'm not leaving you. Jess yelled, pounding her fists against the invisible barrier separating them. But the shadows tightened around the girl, wriggling and twisting like serpents. The ethereal laughter echoed from within, spine-chilling and victorious. Jess felt her breath hitch, panic clawing at her as time slowed. Help me. The girl's plea rang like a bell, driving a sharp ache through Jess's core. Stay strong. Jess shouted, summoning her own flicker of light. Find the truth. You can do this. Cyclones of darkness surged toward her in howling frenzy, but Jess pressed forward, her pulse echoing the need to rescue the very essence of hope she had forged in their bonds. The girl's eyes widened with a dawning understanding, and Jess saw it the girl's strength mirrored her own. They were one against the shadows, intertwined by fate. Let her go. Jess commanded, her heart a forge of courage igniting in her chest. The monstrous whispers hissed objections, spinning anger but faltering beneath Jess's resolute spirit. The shadows raged, clawing ferociously at the girl, but within that darkness, Jess's voice soared, remember who you are. You have power. Light erupted, surging from her grasp toward the girl, illuminating shadows like shards of glass. For a fleeting second, their hands brushed, threads of shimmering magic dancing between them. No. Jess. But as light splintered through, the shadows recoiled, and in that moment, the girl found a spark of strength buried deep. I can do this. I'm not afraid. She yelled, wrenching free from the clutches of despair. With a burst of energy, Jess watched as the girl surged forward, breaking through the veil of darkness. The contact sent waves of pure light rippling through the chaos, illuminating the path around them. As they collided in a whirlwind of resolute spirit, the shadows clenched their teeth, furious at their unraveling hold. Together. Jess shouted, gripping the girl's hand with renewed determination. They pushed back against the advancing darkness, their unity the beacon against an ever-hungry void. A final burst of light exploded from the depths of their joined resolve, scattering the shadows into shards of nothingness. The screams echoed momentarily before dissolving into silence, like smoke blown away by a sudden gust of wind. Breathless and trembling, Jess held on to the girl as they stumbled into the sun-drenched forest beyond, the air growing palpably warmer. What just happened? The girl panted, turning to Jess with wide, astonished eyes. They're gone, Jess whispered, disbelief painting her words. They both felt the weight of the burden they lifted, the cycle broken, the thread severed, but then a low growl rumbled from behind, the echoes fading, but never fully gone. Jess swallowed hard as shadows flickered between the trees. We should go, the girl urged, glancing back with fear and urgency. They're still watching. Right, Jess breathed, heart still rapid but steadier than before. Together, they turned away from the remnants of darkness, their bond forged and unbreakable. Hand in hand, they navigated through the trees, shadows no longer threatening but trailing behind them like fading memories. As they reached the edge of the woods, dawn broke on the horizon soft and golden, brightening the world around them. They emerged into an open field, sunlight dancing over the dew-kissed grass. Jess paused, feeling the warmth of the sun wash over her, washing away shadows lingering in the corners of her mind. We did it, she murmured, relief flooding through her veins. Yes, the girl smiled, dimples forming on her dirt-streaked cheeks. You helped me find my way. Jess smiled back, but... Then a thought crept in. What will happen to you now? I'll be okay, the girl replied, her voice strong. I'll be free. And just like that, a glowing warmth enveloped the girl as if the very daylight had recognized her spirit. Thank you, Jess, she said, ethereal as a whisper, the light exploding around her as she began to dissolve like mist in the morning sun. Wait. Jess reached out, but it was too late. The girl was gone, leaving behind shimmering fragments in the air. The remnants of her spirit fluttered away, making Jess feel both lonely and filled with hope. Goodbye, Jess murmured softly, feeling the echo of thankfulness reverberate in her heart. She turned toward the open field, the shadows receding behind her, no longer a threat. The sunlight touched her face, and in that warmth, Jess found a new determination of fearlessness that would guide her forward. With steady breaths, Jess took in the sight of new beginnings. She was alive, not just surviving but thriving. The experience had forged a bond with someone she might never see again, but the memory would become part of her, etched on her soul. Letting the breeze brush against her skin, she whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore," and ventured forward, ready to embrace life unburdened by the weight of her past. As Jess stepped into her new day, she felt an undeniable power coursing through her. She was free. The true horror had faded, but its lessons would remain ever present, urging her to keep moving forward, embracing every heartbeat, every moment of life with open arms. Now, for those who have followed this chilling journey, I need you to take action. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on any of our next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to help us feed the algorithm and keep this community strong. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear from every one of you. Your voices matter. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support, and let us keep unfolding these dark tales together.